have a great job. I come to a bar and people clap, and I don't have to take my clothes off. It's fabulous. Welcome back to Moore Up North. There has been so much political turmoil and tussles, and I don't think they're quite over yet in the last week in the Republican Party. And I actually was not raised by wolves, despite what some people say. I was raised by Republicans in the great state of Alaska. And I'm rather sad seeing what's happening right now. I know, you think that I would have some sort of like, yeah, they're going down. I don't. I think it's healthier when we have two parties. And I thought, I took some temperatures of different Republicans, and I thought Andrew Halcro would be a great guest to come in and talk about his party. You're still a Republican? Are you still holding on to that?
Yes. I'm still registered as an R. There is still an R after my name.
There is. You, of course, were a two-term Republican state representative and independent gubernatorial candidate who ran against Sarah Palin in 2006.
Hard to believe that was 4 years ago.
I know, but it's Palin years, which actually means like 30.
Like 7 dog years.
Exactly. Andrew, of course, was a talk show host on KENI, and he owns Avis Alaska and is a popular blogger. Even to me. I love Andrew's blog, andrewhalcro.com, even when he writes mean things about me. Oh wait, you haven't for a long time. Yeah. No, it's all good. It's all fair. So, you know, the fact that you went and ran as an independent, I think, is why it's so great you're here to have this conversation tonight, because what we're seeing in the race for governor, there's talk about, and by the time this airs, we may have a new AIP candidate in Bill Walker. There's talk of Lisa Murkowski coming back. A Dittman poll came out this week saying that she'd have a good shot running on that. What's your take on that?
Well, you know, from a personal standpoint, I ran as an independent because I wanted to get to the dance. I did not want to run as a Republican, a closed Republican primary, because I knew that come August 26th, my year would be over, and I wanted to get to the dance. So I ran as an independent. But what you're seeing now with Bill Walker and Lisa Murkowski, in Bill Walker's case, he had a very strong showing in the GOP primary. I mean, this is a guy who pulled a good 38%. And so he did very, very respectable in a GOP primary. And so he's thinking, okay, I have a ground game, I have a network in place, why don't I see if the AIP is open to me slipping on the ticket? It's similar to what Hickel did back in 1990, and Walker is the Hickel-esque candidate.
He is, definitely.
I mean, endorsed by Wally, endorsed by Irma Lee, kind of the all-Alaska gas pipeline. Under Senator Murkowski's situation, she was upset, obviously, by Joe Miller. It was a complete upset and unexpected. And now she's looking at the world beyond the closed Republican primary. So with a closed Republican primary, only select people those people can take the ballot. In the general, in November, Democrats can vote for Republicans, Republicans can vote for Democrats. It's completely wide open. And in a wide open field, what you're seeing is Senator Murkowski has a tremendous base of support, and one that in the Dittman poll released today showed that she's not only viable, she's a front runner.
So would you, for the sake of your party, because I look at Joe Miller, and he's you know, cut from the same Palin cloth, and I don't really identify them as Republican, or, I mean, I'm not so cruel to say inhuman, but I just think they are coming, even the AIP people make more sense to me than this evangelical, the rapture is their environmental policy, it's also their healthcare policy, and they hate the federal government. You know, they get into government and then prove it's bad. And then quit.
Well, no. What they do is they get into government and they stay in government because it's the easiest job they've ever had. And I saw that in the legislature too. I mean, I got elected with a lot of guys who talked about term limits in 1998, and here it is 2010, and they're still in office. Many of them are running for re-election this year. So, you know, you get a taste of that, and it's an easy job, and every 2 to 4 years you campaign. But what I'm seeing with the Joe Miller candidacy is he's just too risky. He's too dangerous. He's too risky. The whole Tea Party movement is based on some notion that we're going to return to 14th century ideals or the 1950s, and it's unconscionable. And I think what's happening now is a lot of moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats are looking at Joe Miller as the GOP nominee saying, whoa, Sally, hold the ship. I mean, we have got to write this course, and we got to take a look at who else is out there, because we're going to be in a world of hurt. What's surprising about the Joe Miller election, or the U.S. Senate race, and how well Joe Miller did, is he won in interior districts where their whole district survives on government funding. I mean, it was just 5 years ago that the Carlson Center was full of red T-shirts, people opposing the base closure, Eielson closure. The BRAC Commission was in town, and everybody in Fairbanks showed up with these red T-shirts to protest the loss of government support in the town. And now you have a guy who goes out and wins in these same areas, preaching that the federal government needs to do less and the state needs to do more.
And for years, we elected Republicans who ran on, look how much I can bring home.
That's right.
It was like this Robin Hood goes to D.C. and brings it back, you know, and we were like, and Lisa won against Tony, I really think, in those last days, brought Ted Stevens in as a closer, and he was like, I'm not going to be able to do my job without her as my wingman sort of thing. And I think it's really sort of ridiculous to have this anti-federal attitude when if you want to drive from here to Fairbanks or here to South Anchorage, you're going to be on a federally funded road, chances are.
Well, I mean, look at when you look at the election results, one of the things that jumps out at me is Don Young, who for years has been called the king of pork and probably the most notable Republican for bringing money back to the state. He gets 60% of the vote. I mean, he won his primary by a good 36%. So it's silly to me how these folks focus on one person, on Murkowski, when in fact Young, you know, they accept the Young in all of his record that comes with him.
Hell, he takes pork to Coconut Grove or Road or whatever in Florida.
No project too big or too small.
That's right. Or even it doesn't even have to be here. He can get money funneled into Florida, and so yeah, you're right. Their ideology isn't tracking very well.
Well, and their strategy is just to take somebody. It's the Sarah Palin strategy. It's to focus on somebody and demonize the hell out of them. Because if Joe Miller didn't have Lisa Murkowski to demonize, and he didn't have, you know, somebody to make the boogeyman in this race, he wouldn't have won. If he didn't have the Tea Party backing, nobody would be talking about Joe Miller today. I mean, this is a guy that would have probably pulled 28, 30% in the Republican primary. But because of all this Tea Party money, and they made the focus of Lisa's record and distorted that for the last 3 weeks of the campaign, without a response from the Murkowski camp, voters went to the polls thinking that, you know, Lisa Murkowski was a liberal.
Right, which was just like, no, she's not. I have my liberal cred. I've checked. She's not.
She has no street cred with me.
No, well, not for being a liberal, being a decent person, of course. But it was funny because I was listening to the radio, and they were saying that she had voted yes on this, you know, on this thing, and I'm thinking, no, she didn't. And I was mad at her because she didn't, but they're lying. How much do you think that Prop 2, the parental notification, I think it wasn't just Lisa that was demonized. I think it was the liberals. They want drive-through abortion clinics. They're going to take your children out of schools and give them abortions without even being pregnant. And Plan B is going to be served in school lunches. And these liberals, and they actually called, and I've been called as well, a rabid abortionist. They called Lisa that because she doesn't think that the federal government or anybody has any business telling women what to do with their bodies. That's actually a Republican stand in this state.
Is that not less government? Is that not what these people seek? Less government in your bedroom, in your checkbook, in your business, in your capital markets.
Right.
I mean, isn't that what they preach?
If you're doing
why
a
doesn't it apply?
check,
yes,
that's big
right.
government.
That's right.
I mean, and you know, the Republicans in this state, if you want to say this is a states' right issue, the right to have a legal procedure, or to have an abortion legally. It was settled before the federal government settled it. Right. In 1970, the Republican-led Senate introduced it here in Alaska. Clem Tillian led the Senate. He was Senate president then, Republican majority, and they did it on the privacy clause. The states' rights issue has already been determined in Alaska.
And not only is it already been determined by the voters, it's been upheld by the Alaska State Supreme Court for the last 28 years.
Why does Joe Miller hate our Constitution? I mean,
film at 11.
That's right. I mean, and so how much did that ballot initiative mean to both Sean Parnell getting elected and for Joe Miller getting elected?
I mean, I think abortion in a closed Republican primary is always a hot topic, but I don't know, simply because all of the candidates were for it. I mean, the 3 gubernatorial candidates were for it, both Murkowski and Miller were for it, and so I really believe it had little or nothing to do with the abortion issue and everything to do with people being angry and her being labeled as part of the problem. I mean, that's what I really see.
Did it bring out that part of the population, though,
Oh, yeah.
I don't mean that that's how they picked as much as it seemed to get that part of the populace, that's their button.
That's right. That's their one issue.
That's their one issue. And it's like, I don't know, these grumpy old men sitting around thinking about the uteruses of young girls seems a little bit perverted to me.
Well,
but they got it on the ballot, and I think it did draw up
From
that.
a public policy standpoint, here's the most frustrating. In 1997, the state legislature passed parental consent, okay? And it was appealed, so the law was taken off the books, and it took 10 years for it to make its way through the Alaska State Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional. So here we've gone to the polls, we've passed it by a vote of the people. It's going to be appealed in court, it's going to be put on hold, and in 10 years, the Alaska State Supreme Court is going to rule the exact same way. So what happens is these folks get a little bit of pleasure in the next month or two, knowing that they passed this and they voted for it, but it's unconstitutional. It violates the right to privacy. Alaska is the only state in the country with such a strict right to privacy clause. And let me tell you, if you live in a state where the Supreme Court says it's okay if you keep up to 4 ounces of marijuana in your house, let me tell you something. They are not getting involved in a decision between you and your doctor.
Yeah,
I mean, period. I mean, that's privacy.
That certainly is. Andrew Halcro, our guest right now. We'll be back with More Up North in just a couple of moments.